Okay, next topic is absorption costing. We already studied material and labor. We know that we should include cost of labor and material in our products, but the third cost that is remaining is overheads. Remember, overheads is indirect cost. So total of all overhead indirect costs is called overheads. Total of direct costs is called prime cost. These are the things that exist in the FIA papers, but not very important to go back and study. So just know overheads are the indirect costs. So the question is, should we include overheads cost in our products, in valuation of our inventory, in valuation of our products? I'm not talking about whether we should charge it on customer. Remember, cost of the product and the selling price doesn't have to be the same, because we add a profit on our cost and we decide the selling price. So we are not talking about whether we should charge overheads on our customer or not. We are talking about whether overheads should be included in units or not. Overheads or indirect costs are two types. We have variable overheads, we have fixed overheads. So indirect costs can be fixed, which means fixed overheads, or they could be variable, meaning variable overheads. Example of fixed overheads is like the cost of supervisor, the cost of rent, so all those stuff. Now variable overheads, there's no question about variable overheads. Variable overheads, because they increase with units, the more the units, the more is variable overheads. Even if they are not directly related, they are indirectly related. So because they increase with units, there's no question about it, they should be included in units. But the problem is with fixed overheads, fixed cost. Should we include fixed costs in units or not? Should we include the cost of rent, the cost of supervisor, the cost of manager in our units or not? There are actually two concepts, two opinions. One opinion is that fixed costs should be included in units, and another opinion is fixed costs should not be included in units. The opinion that says fixed costs should be included in units is called absorption costing system. So in absorption costing, we use something called full cost. Full cost is variable cost plus fixed cost of unit. So what we do with the fixed cost, we take the total fixed cost, we divide it into units. So we find cost per unit. We will see that in a minute. So absorption costing says fixed costs should be included in units. Whenever we have cost of our product, the cost should be full cost. Then we have marginal costing. Marginal costing says fixed costs should not be included in units, and the valuation of our product should be based on variable cost. Variable cost is also called marginal cost. Marginal cost of a product is called variable cost. Full cost of a product is absorbed cost. So marginal also means partial. So marginal costing means that the cost of the product is only partial. It is partial because it doesn't include the fixed costs in it, and in absorption costing, it has full cost. So comparing both absorption and marginal costing, remember absorption costing says includes fixed costs in units, hence we will have full costs. Marginal costing says don't include fixed costs in units, hence we will have marginal cost. So what absorption costing does is it takes the fixed cost, it divides it into units, and there are steps that needs to be done. We will look at those steps. What marginal costing does, it treats fixed cost as period costs. Period costs are costs that change with time. So marginal costing believes that fixed costs don't change with activity, they change with time. Change with time means, for example, if a cost is monthly, it is charged monthly. It doesn't have anything to do with activity. So the best thing to do is to charge it to our reports, and normally yearly reports if we are making reports yearly, or monthly reports if we are making reports monthly. But normally we assume that we are making reports annually. So marginal costs treats fixed costs as period costs. It doesn't include them in units. Now remember, it doesn't mean that according to marginal costing our selling price would be lower. According to absorption costing our selling price would be higher. Selling price is another decision. It doesn't have to do with the valuation, the cost method. Yeah, there is a little bit link, but it doesn't mean lower cost would mean lower price, higher cost would mean higher cost. It is just the way the costs are treated is different. Now, fixed absorption costing says include fixed costs into units because fixed costs are because of units. For example, if we are paying rent for the factory, we are paying that rent because we are producing. If we were not producing, we would not be incurring that cost. If we didn't have a factory, we wouldn't pay for the rent. Even though it doesn't change, but the main reason we have to pay is because of the production. So absorption costing says that is why it should be included. Marginal costing says, but it doesn't change, even though if it is because of production, it doesn't change with production. So if something doesn't change with activity, it shouldn't be included in activity. International accounting standards prefers absorption costing. They encourage using absorption costing whenever we are valuing inventory. Remember, inventory is valued at lower of cost or NRV. In cost, we can use full cost, including the fixed cost. It recommends it. It is not a rule that you have to follow it. Management prefers marginal costing. You will see many decisions that we make is based on marginal cost. We have something called relevant cost. You will study in F5. We don't have decision making in F2 level. When you go to F5 level, you will see that in decision making we use relevant costs, and in relevant cost we use incremental or variable cost. Okay, so now we will focus on absorption costing, on how costs is included in units. So once that is done, then we will look at marginal costing in another video and compare both marginal costing and absorption costing. So for now, let's see how, if we are using absorption costing, how are fixed costs divided into units. So we are looking at those steps. I've already explained what is periodic cost. So how does absorption costing work? How is fixed cost included in units? There are some steps. We will look at them, each of them in details. We have allocation, apportionment, reapportionment, absorption, and then under or absorption. Apportionment and reapportionment is usually used as one step, but they are actually a second part in absorption costing. So what is allocation? In big organizations, the production department will be divided into many sub-departments. Remember, we are talking about production department. We are not talking about administrations and stuff. Our focus here is production. Administration and those costs are not included in product anyway, so only focus is on production cost. Allocation is when a cost is specifically identified, specifically related to a department. Let's say we have Department A, production department. We have Department B, production department. Each of them has a separate supervisor. So the salary of those supervisors are specifically related to those departments. So supervisors in Department A, salary relates to Department A. Supervisor B's salary relates to Department B. So that is called allocation. Allocation step will be done for you in exam. There isn't anything technical about it. So they will tell you that a certain cost relates to a certain department. That means allocation. The place where you will be starting from, and remember, now it will not make sense once the whole steps are completed, and then you will see the results, the whole reason behind doing these steps. So for now, only focus on each step at a time. So allocation will be done usually. So the step that you could be asked is any of these other steps. And I would not expect all of these steps to be asked in one question, because absorption costing comes maximum 2 marks. So it would be one of these steps, not all of these. So apportionment is, see, apportion means portion, making portions. It is when we divide common costs between departments. Common cost is a cost incurred by more departments. For example, the building in which Department A and Department B is located, both of these departments use building. So the rent of that building is a common cost incurred by Department A and Department B. Now, taking the rent and dividing on Department A and Department B is called apportionment. How would we divide the cost of rent? Usually it could be area. There could be other measures as well, but the most common would be, we look at the area. The bigger the department, the more rent will be charged on that department. So let's look at apportionment step in a question. Okay, required apportion cost to the departments and then reapportion service cost center to the production department. We will now only focus on apportionment. So we have production department and service department. Let me explain that. Production department is a department that is directly involved in production, and then service department is a department that is not directly involved in production, but it helps the production department. It supports the production department. Like service departments could be warehouse, canteen. Okay, let's read the question from the top. Swatterton Incorporated has 2 production departments, A and B, and 2 service departments, maintenance and store. There are 4 departments, Department A, Department B, and then service departments, maintenance and store. Remember, I said that the production departments is important, but we have service departments here as well. You will see that once we have completed these steps, what is important is Department A and Department B. Details of next year budgeted overheads are shown below. Now they said here budgeted overheads. These steps that we do, the allocation, apportionment, reapportionment, absorption, up to this 4th step, all of them are done in advance. We can't tell our customers to wait till the end of the year so that the costs are known, so that we can divide them into units and then we will give them a price. Obviously, they will not accept it. So we need to know the prices in advance. So what we do is we do this calculation based on budgeted overheads. How do we prepare budget? Usually from last year's data, called incremental budget. We take last year's data, we see the units that we have done, the cost that was incurred. We look at that, and using that, any inflation affected, we will predict next year, this year's cost. We don't have to be 100% accurate, but something is better than nothing. So these steps are done in advance. That's why it is budgeted overheads rather than actual overheads. So we will be doing these steps, for example, in January. So at the start of the year, we need to know the prices. Okay, we need to know the costs and hence the prices. We have heat and light, repair costs, machinery cost, rent and rates, canteen and machinery insurance. So these are the 6 costs that we expect to be incurred. Obviously, practically in a business, there will be many costs, but the important thing here is just getting the idea. Details of each department are as follows. We have floor area occupied by Department A, 6,000 square meters, 4,000, 3,000, 2,000, total 15,000. We have machine book value 48,000, 20,000, 8,000, 4,000. Number of employees 50, 40, 20, 10. Allocated overheads 15,000, 20,000, 12,000, and 5,000. So total becomes 50,000. Now, these allocated overheads are already given. Total is 50,000, and they have told us how much relates to a specific department. So there's no problem with allocated overheads. I've written them there. The problem is taking these 6 costs and dividing on departments. We have other department as well, other information as well. Service department services were used as follows. Maintenance hours worked, 5,000, 4,000, 1,000, and the number of store acquisition, 3,000, 4,000. This is something that we will use for reapportionment. For now, we will focus on this. Okay, starting with the first cost, heat and light. Now we take this cost and we divide it on departments using a measure. We call it proxy. Those 3 measures are given. There could be many measures given, but once you do practice of a few questions, you will know which measure is best for which cost. Like for heat and light, out of the floor area, machine book value, and number of employees, if we wanted to divide the cost, the best thing would be to use floor area. Obviously, the bigger the area, the more it costs to heat, the more is light. Obviously, there are other factors as well, but out of these 3 things, floor area seems a good one. So now we will take the cost, apportionment. We are apportioning heat and light, and we are going to use the proxy floor area. Cost is 19,200, and floor area total is 15,000. You can remove zeros if you want to save time. So then we have specific 6,000, 4,000, 3,000, 2,000, each department. 6,000, 4,000, 3,000, 2,000. I want to double check to see that the total is right. It is 15,000. This relates to A, this relates to B, this relates to maintenance, and this relates to store. So now, taking the total cost divided by floor area multiplied by floor area of A. Total costs divided by floor area multiplied by floor area of B. So I'm going to do this for all of these departments. We have M and we have S. I will double check it to make sure I have divided it accurately. Now I will take the cost and link it to each of these departments. This is called apportionment. So basically, we made portions of the total cost and we divided them on each department. So we will do this for all 6 of these. Next is repair cost. So if we wanted to divide repairs, a floor area, machine book value, number of employees. Obviously, the higher the value of machine, the more it will cost to repair. There are other factors as well, but remember, we are choosing the best between these 3. So I will copy this format. Now we are dividing repair, and we are using NBV of machines. The cost is 9,600. Dividing on book value of machine, 80,000. To save time, I will remove zeros. 48,284. So because I had already linked it, it's done. So how will you be able to do this in exam? Obviously, you're not using Excel there. But in exam, you're not asked about the whole thing as well. So for the purpose of this video, so that it takes less time, the important thing is delivering the concepts. I've done it like this. Next is machine depreciation. It will also be fair to use book value. The higher the value of machine, the more will be depreciation. Remember, one proxy can be used more than once. It doesn't necessarily have to be used once. We have 54,000 cost. And because the usage, the value is the same, I don't have to change anything. So I'm going to link this as well. Department A, Department B, Department Maintenance, Department Store. Next we have rent and rates. Rent and rates would be fair to use floor area. So rent and rates is 38,400. So everything else is in line, so no need to adjust anything. Next we have canteen. Obviously, number of employees. The more employees, the more cost of canteen. Okay, let me change this. This is rent and rates. And also that one as well. This is not repairs, this is insurance. Depreciation, sorry. So employees are 120. I will remove zeros to save time. We have 5421. And let's link this one as well. Okay, the cost is 9,000. See, the benefit of linking is if I change one thing, everything else is okay. So doing this will help you a lot in a 5 level because you have to do work in Excel. Okay, we have machinery insurance. Again, we will use value of machine higher the value of machine, the higher the insurance. And the cost is 25,000. So we have taken total costs and we have divided on departments, and this is called apportionment. Remember, the first step was done allocation. There isn't anything technical about it. We have to do apportionment. So it is taking the cost, a common cost, and dividing on production departments. Next step is reapportionment. Reapportionment is a redivision of service department costs on production department based on use of each department. Now we had service departments here. Service department doesn't have anything to do with production department. They give service to the production department. They help service departments. So their costs are being borne by the production department. So we should take these costs and we should charge it on production department. This is called reapportionment. There are different methods involved. One is step-down method. Like in this question, they said here, we had 5,000 maintenance hours worked in Department A, 4,000 worked in B, and 1,000 in store, which means this maintenance department's usage was 5,000 here, 4,000 here, and 1,000 here, about 50%, 40%, and 10%. Sometimes they are given as a percentage, sometimes they are given as amount. You will see in a minute when we are doing absorption algebraic method. In algebraic method, if they are not given as a percentage, you have to convert it to percentage. In these other methods, we don't need a percentage, but percentage would be simply taking this 5,000 divided by total. So you can see maintenance department is used by store, but store is not used by maintenance. So we don't have a reciprocal service. Reciprocal service is when service department gives services to each other. So in this situation, we don't have a reciprocal. We don't have a service department taking requests from maintenance. So in a situation like this, where one department gives service to all, but the other one only gives service to production department, then we will start with the one that gives service to all. For example, if I take maintenance and divide it on A, B, S, and then I will take S and directly divide by A and B. If I start with S and I divide by AB, then I divide a maintenance on ABS, then I have to take S again and then divide. It will be 2 times. So the best thing to do is to take maintenance, divide it on production departments, all departments, and then take store and divide it by production department. This is called step-down method. Step-down method is when we take one department and we divide it on all departments, and we take second one and we divide it only on production department. So here we are starting with maintenance because maintenance gives service to all departments, and the way we are going to divide it is based on hours. Yeah, maintenance hours. So I will just write hours. Total cost of maintenance department is 33,880, and total hours worked is 10,000. So I'm going to remove zeros, write 10. We have 5,000 hours here, 4,000 here, and then 1,000 here. Double checking, total is 10. We have A, B, and S. Now taking the total maintenance divided by hours, multiply by A, just like we did apportionment. In fact, this reapportionment is also included in the step apportionment. Usually it is not written separately, but this is a separate step than that. So double checking that the cost is accurately allocated. So what we have done is minus the cost from here, and we have charged it on these other departments. So overall, in total, nothing changes. Only the cost shifts from one department to other departments. Now we are going to take the maintenance, the store, including this 3,000. Remember, original was 17,000, but now that we have added 3,000 from the maintenance, now it becomes 21,000. So now we are going to reapportion store, and we are going to do that based on store requests, and requests are only done by the production departments. We have 3,000 and 1,000 requests, total is 4,000. Cost is 21,248. Requests are 4, which is 3 and 1, total 4. We have Department A, Department B, no usage by the maintenance, just double checking. So now taking the store and dividing on production departments. So again, nothing changes as a total. The cost has only been shifted from service departments to production departments. Now in this question, we didn't have reciprocal service. Reciprocal service is when both service departments give service to each other. We have the same question, but this time there's reciprocal. Previously, okay, the maintenance is the same, but store is different. Now we have 3,000, 4,000, and 1,000. So maintenance also uses store, and store also uses maintenance. If we have reciprocal service, we can still use step-down method, which means we take one department and we divide it on all departments, and we take the second one only dividing on production departments, even if it gives service to service departments. Now, the important thing is where to start from. If you start from maintenance, for example, your answer will be different. If you start from store, your answer will be different. So if they have step-down method in reciprocal service, they will tell you which department to start with. Like in this question, they told you apportion the service department overhead costs using the step-down method of apportionment, starting with the stores department. They said start with the store department. If they don't tell me, I would start with the department that has the highest cost. I will divide it on all departments, and then I will take the second one and divide on production departments. Or do both. Start with maintenance and C, and start with store and C. Whichever answer was matching in the 4 options that you have in exam. So that would be a way of knowing that which method was recommended. So if it is told directly start with the certain department, directly start with that, or start with the one that highest cost and see if the answer matches. If it doesn't match, then start with another department, and if the answer matches, it means that is a hint that you had to start with that department. Now in this case, the maintenance would be the same. So I'm going to copy this. Okay, the problem is they have asked to start with store department, so there will be difference. So we have store, and we're going to use request. If they had asked us to start with maintenance, there would be no difference with this one. But because they specifically asked starting with store, we are going to start with store. So we have cost of store 18,660. Dividing on number of requests. Remember, it changed to 5,000. We have 3,000, 1,000, and 1,000. Overall, 5,000. We have Department A, Department B, and Department Maintenance. total cost dividing by request multiplying by A, and doing the same with other two departments as well. So now with reapportionment of store, we have A, B, and M. Now we are going to total this. I'm going to write as a minus. Okay, we have maintenance. Now maintenance request is 5,000, 4,000, 1,000. If I divide on all three departments, then there will be something left with store. And then if I take store and divide by all, there will be something left with maintenance. So in step down method, what we do is we take the last department and we only divide on production department. Like we are going to ignore the 1,000 here. So what we are going to do, take the cost 38,572 and divide it on 5,000 and 4,000, total 9,000. We are going to ignore the store. So we have A, B. So if we do it like this, then nothing will go to the store. So we don't have to repeat the steps again. So we divided one department on all department. The second one only is divided on production department. So we have maintenance. Remember, overall total doesn't change. The only thing that changes is that the cost is shifted to production departments. Okay? So this was step down method. Step down method is used in a situation where we have one department giving service but the other one not giving, like we had here, or even if there is reciprocal service, we can still use step down method. Another method is direct method. As its name suggests, when we have reciprocal service departments giving services to each other, instead of apportioning cost on service departments, we are going to directly divide it on production department. So in direct method, it doesn't matter whether you are starting with M or S. In step down method, remember it matters, but in direct method, it doesn't matter. In fact, it comes as an MCQs as well, that in direct method starting with, it doesn't matter which department you start with. Yeah, it doesn't matter. So what we are going to do, take maintenance or store, whichever you want to do. I'm going to copy it from the first one I did here. And what I'm going to do is remove the third. The first one didn't have third anyway, the second one. And I'm going to use here 9. And the cost is 18,660 because the maintenance cost doesn't come to it. And it is 34,840. Okay, I think I've written this figure here incorrectly. The total should be something different. let's check the top. 33,880. Okay, the question is actually different. And then the second one, they said assume that the cost is 34,840. So it's not, there's no problem. So we're going to assume it is 34. Okay, no problem here. And here we're going to assume it is 34,840. No problem. Okay, so starting with maintenance, we have 19,355 and 15,848, and minusing 34,840, and doing the same thing with store, minusing 18,660 and dividing that on these other departments. So when we total it, overall total doesn't change. The only thing that changes is cost shifts from service department and they go to production departments. Okay, I want to double check the first apportionment calculation to see whether we have done it right or wrong. Otherwise it doesn't matter. Important thing is you understand the concept. I want to see whether it is done correctly. 48,20,84. 48,20,84. 5421. 5421. Yeah, it seems like correct. But this other question is given as a second time, so it could have a different figure. It doesn't matter. Next, we have repeated distribution. As its name suggests, you repeatedly distribute. I'm not going to actually do it. I don't expect it to come in exam because it doesn't have an exact answer. You only have to understand it theoretically. So repeated distribution obviously happens in reciprocal service, where each department gives service to each other. What you could do is in repeated distribution, you take one department and you divide it on all. Then you take the second one, you divide it on all. And then you take the first one again, you divide on all. So you repeatedly do that. When the figure becomes insignificant, you divide it on production departments directly. It depends on your discretion. Like 18,000 becomes 77, comparing to 18,000 is insignificant. What I've done here is divided directly on production department. So repeated distribution doesn't have an exact answer. It depends on your stamina, that how many times you divide it. So the thing is, you repeatedly divide, and then when you reach amount that is insignificant, you directly divide on production departments. Next, we have algebraic method. Algebraic method and direct method is something that I would expect to come in exam. If direct method comes, they would usually tell you which department to start with. Otherwise, it doesn't have an exact answer. If step-down method comes. Otherwise, algebraic method and direct method have exact answers. That's why I would expect them to come in exam. So doing this question by algebraic method, there are different ways you can do it, but I will explain only one way. Remember, we are finding M and S. M is the maintenance and S is the store. We know this much that let's go to the question. We know this much that maintenance by itself is 34,840 plus 20% of S, because 1,000 requests, which is 20% of request of M goes to S goes to maintenance. So it's the cost 34,000 itself and 20% of this 18,000. So that's why you need percentages in algebraic method. Without percentages, you will not be able to answer it. So in algebraic method, even if percentage is not given, you have to convert it to percentage. So we have 34,840 plus 20% of S, 0.20 S. And then S by itself is 18,660 plus 10% of maintenance, so 0.10 M. S equals 18,660 plus 0.10 M. So take any equation, you will have answer. I will explain both of them. I will calculate using both of them to see that they give you exact answer. If you start with them, if you start with S, they give you exact same answer. So what I'm going to do is multiply both sides by 5. What that will do is it will convert this 0.20 to 1. So it means we will have 5M equals 38,840. Let's open calculator. We have 34,840 multiplied by 5 becomes 174,200 plus 1S or S. I'll just write S. Now we can rearrange this equation. If I bring this to the other side, it will become minus. So we have 5M minus 1742, or I can write it like this as well. It will mean the same thing. S equals minus 174,200 plus 5M. The reason I want to write it like this is so that it becomes very similar to this equation. Then I will bring this and I will minus it from the top. If I minus this equation from the top, what happens is we have 0S, and because this is minus itself, it will increase. So minus 174,200 minus 18,660, 192,860. And this 5 will become 4.90 M. I can rearrange this equation. I can say 4.90 M equals, remember this is minus 192,860. The reason it becomes plus is because if I take it to the other side, it will become plus. Now dividing both sides by 4.9, I will have the value of M. So M equals 192,860 192,860 divided by 4.90 becomes 39,359. 39,359. Once I know the value of M, I can put it in the equation of S. So if you start with the equation of M, you will first find the value of M, and then you can put that value in the equation of S. You can directly find S. So if I put it here and put equal sign, it will give me 22,596 if we round it off. S equals 22,596. Okay, let's start with equation of S to show you that no matter which equation you start with, you will have the same answer. Now I will multiply this both sides by 10. Which will become 10S equals 18,600 extra 0 because multiplying 10. And this becomes 1M or M. And then rearranging becomes minus 18,600 plus 10S. Minusing the equation of M. We have 0M. And then minus 18,600 minus 34,840 becomes minus 221,440 plus 9.80 S. Rearranging 9.80 S equals 221,440, dividing both sides by 9.80. S equals 221,440 divided by 9.80 becomes 22596. 22596, the same thing as this one. So if you start with the equation of S, first S will be known. When S is known, you can put that in the equation of M, you will find M. So if I put equal sign, the value becomes 35959, the same thing as that one. So whether you start with M, whether you start with S, it gives you exact same answer. Now if I take this figure, the original figures, which is 34,840 plus 18,660, they become 53,500. But if I look at these figures found by this formula, we have 22,596, which is 61,955, which is more than the original figure. But the thing is, once we have found the value of M, when we are reapportioning M, what we do is we directly multiply. We don't have to divide. We directly multiply. Okay, so the percentage, let me remove this. The percentage of Department A is 50%. So we directly multiply by 50%. It gives us A. We directly multiply by 40%. Which gives us B. So what we are doing here, we are leaving 10% here. And when we are dividing S, which is 22,596 multiplied by 60% and 20%. Now, if I take all of these with 19, let's make this, let's leave it 9, 196, so 9.5 plus 15743.6 plus 13557.6 plus 4519. So if 53,499, which is 0.3 less because of rounding off. What I'm going to do, make this 8 and make this 0.5 so that we have an exact answer. Okay, so even though the figure given by the algebraic method, each individual departments is different, more than the original figure, but the thing is, we take that and we divide it. We only take the percentage of production departments. So we have left about 10% here. We've left about 20% here. So now, just take that figure. So remember, we are doing both of them together. Individually, they will not make sense. Collectively, both of them reapportioned. sorry. So we've minused, let me add it as one thing. Separately, it doesn't make sense. 13558 and 4519. And then minusing 34,840 from here, 18,660 from here. So overall, total doesn't change. What changes is each departments. So this was apportionment and reapportionment. So allocation, apportionment, and reapportionment finds how much is the cost in each departments. And then we have to take the cost in department and include it into units, which is next step. Absorption. This is the reason it's called absorption costing. So now we take the cost in each of these departments and we divide it in units based on a measure. It's called absorption. The way we do it is we take budgeted overheads in department. Why did I use the term budgeted? Remember, these overheads are budgeted because I explained that they have to be known in advance. So that's why budgeted overheads divided by budgeted activity. We take the overheads in a department, we divide it by activity in that department. It will give us overhead absorption rate, OAR, or it is also known as overhead recovery rate or overhead charge rate, whatever you want to call it, but it is most commonly known as overhead absorption rate. The three main ways that is used is machine hours, labor hours, and per unit, but we can use overheads as a percentage of material or labor or prime costs as well. But the ones that are very common is these three. Let's look at a question on it. What I've done, what I've written here, I've explained in this next page as well. So we have a question. Calculate absorption rate using various bases of absorption. We have department A and department B. We have overheads, and then we have some data given. So let's look at department A. We're going to take 36,000 divided by, which is overheads, dividing by material cost. 32,000 multiplied by 100. It will give us as a percentage, 112% of material, if we are using as a percentage of material. This is one way of using dividing overheads. So we say every $1 spent on material would mean we have $1.12 of overheads. We could use as a percentage of labor costs as well. Simply take overheads, 36,000 divided by 40,000 multiplied by 100, 90%. Okay, I will use the word or because all of them is not used. One of them is used, whichever is good. We have machine hours. We have 36,000 cost divided by 10,000, which we have 3.60 per hour. Or we could use labor hours divided by 18,000. 2 per hour. So in department A, these are all ways we could use. In department B, We have only overheads and units. We don't have any other measure given, so obviously we will only use what is given. In question as well, whatever is given, find rate using that measure. So we have 5 per unit. Now, which one is better? Is material better, or labor cost better, or machine hours better, or labor hours better? Which one is better? Remember, the units, machine hours, and labor hours is the one that is commonly used. But out of all of these three, which one is better? If we are comparing machine hours and units, then machine hours is better. The reason that units is not a good way of dividing overheads is because there could be different types of products produced in an organization. If we charge same overheads to units of different volume, different sizes, then it would not be accurate. It would not be equity. It would be equality, but it would not be equitable. So if machine hours is there, it means the unit that uses more machine hours, more overheads will be charged on that. If we have units and labor hours, then we would use labor hours. If we have labor hours and machine hours both used in a department, then we have to look at whichever is more. Like in this question, where 10,000 machine hours and 18,000 machine hours, out of these two, labor hours will be a good way of dividing it because it would mean that more work is done with labor hours, so that means more overheads would relate to labor hours. So forget about charging overheads using material cost or labor cost. The three methods that you would be using is machine hours, labor hours, or units. If machine hours and labor hours is given, ignore units. Out of machine hours and labor hours, choose whichever is more hours. Okay, this was a blanket rate, a departmental rate, where we have different rates for different departments. We could have blanket rate as well. Blanket rate is when we have one rate for the whole organization. We could have different costs incurred in different departments. We could have different overheads incurred in different departments. So the way we did it here is departmental rate, because we found separate rates for separate departments. If we take all these costs together and we divide it on one thing, for example, the machine hours or labor hours or production, that would be blanket rate. For example, if I take 36,000 and 5,000, both of them together, and I will ignore the first two. If I divide it on 10,000, that would be for both departments 4.1 per hour. 41,000 divided by 18,000 will be 2.2, or divided by units will be 41 per unit. This is blanket rate. Obviously, blanket rate is not very fair basis of absorbing overheads, because in different departments we could have different costs incurred, different activity available. So it would be better to use departmental rate. So like in this question, we have two departments, cutting and finishing. We have budgeted overheads and actual overheads. Remember, rate is found using budget. We never use actual data to find rate. We only use actual data when budgeted data is not given. In a question, if budgeted data is not given, you can use actual data. Otherwise, rates are found using budget. The reason is we don't know about the actual cost until the end of the year. So we have two departments, cutting department and finishing departments. We have overheads and then activity in each of these departments. And then actual is given. We will simply ignore this. The following information is also available about one of the company's products. We have a product that takes 6 hours here and 1 hour here, and it takes 2 hours here and 4 hours here. So now we will look at different rates for these departments. In cutting department, if we were using a rate, what would be a fair rate? Would it be using machine hours or labor hours? Because machine hours is more, it means more work is done with machines, so overheads would relate more to machine hours. So machine hours rate would be better. So we'll take 100,000 divided by 50,000. We will have 2 per machine hour. In finishing department, because more labor hours is done, so rate using labor hours would be better. 50,000 divided by 12,500. 4 per labor hour. Now, if we want to find cost per unit, we just have to look at the rate and the time that is taken in each department. In cutting department, because rate is using machine hours, we are going to ignore the labor hours. So 6 hours are taken here. So 6 multiplied by 2, which is the rate, 12 will be in cutting department. So the overheads that is charged per unit in cutting department is 12 per unit. And the overheads that is charged for this specific product, remember, if different product use different time, there will be different rate. So we have 8 per unit in finishing department. So that means that the cost per unit would be 20 per unit in both departments. If we were using blanket rate instead of departmental rate, we have 100,000 plus 50,000 total overheads in both departments, 50,000 and 3,000 machine hours, and 20,000 and 12,000 labor hours. 12,500. Yeah. So if we were using one rate for the whole organization, then we would use machine hours, because machine hours is more. So that means we would have 2.8 per machine hour. 2.8 per machine hour, and there is 6 plus 1, 7 machine hours used in both departments. That means our rate would be 19.60, very closer to that one. But blanket rates are not fair rates because different products could use different time in these departments. Next, final step is under over absorption. Now, these rates were found using budget. How? Because we did the allocation, the apportionment, all of these costs that we used were budget. Now, when a period ends, maybe we have included too much cost in our units, or maybe we have included too little cost in units. It will be very rare. I would say it would not be possible to have the budgeted overheads and actual overheads exactly the same. So there will be difference. So absorbed is overheads that we have included in our units. So if we have included too much overheads, then it means we have over-absorbed overheads. And over-absorbed is good thing, because over-absorbed means we have charged more, but actual is less. In variance analysis, when you're doing variance analysis, when you go to variance analysis, you will understand that over-absorption is good, because over-absorption simply means we thought that overheads would be more, but actual overheads are less. So when actual is less, it is a good thing. Remember, there are many other things involved in it, so I will not go into too much details at this stage at F2 level. I will say over-absorption is good. Under-absorb means absorbed, the charge is less, but actual is more. So when actual is more, it means it is a bad thing. So we compare the actual overheads with the overheads that we have charged And if charged is more, we have overabsorbed. If charged is less, we have underabsorbed. Overabsorbed is added to the profit or deducted from the cost. Both of them mean the same thing. Underabsorbed is deducted from the profit or added to the cost, which should give you the same result. Let's look at question. So this is what I explained. Calculate under or absorb. ABC Limited uses absorption costing. The following information for its one production department is as follows. We have budgeted overheads, machine hours, and labor hours. And then we have actual overheads, machine hours, and labor hours. Remember, rate is found using budget. So we're going to take 200,000 divided by the machine hours or labor hours. Remember, machine hours, because machine hours is more. So we would have 2 per machine hours. This is our OIR. So rate is found using budget. I've explained here. Rate is found using budget, but it is charged using actual activity. Every hour that we spend on unit, we will charge overheads. So when I'm finding absorbed overheads, the overheads that I have charged on customer, it will be actual activity multiplied by OIR, which in this case is actual activity given is 80,000. Once I find the rate, then I will charge it using actual activity. So that means we have charged 160,000 overheads, but the actual overheads in this question is 208,000. So actual is more, we have under absorbed. By how much? 48,000. So it simply means that the overheads that we have charged is less than the overheads that we have incurred. So this 48,000 would be deducted from our profit. Now, why does under or absorption happens? One reason is actual activity is not the same as budgeted. As you can see here, we had 100,000 budgeted hours and actual were 80,000. Second reason is actual overheads is not the same as budgeted. We estimated 200,000 overheads, but actual overheads is 208,000. Or it could be a combination of both, like we have in this question. We have both overheads and activity different from overheads and activity budgeted. We have another question as well that has all situations. I will not answer the first one. I will leave that for you. Let's look at this one where we have all 3 situations. Calculate the under or absorption overheads and note the reason for under or absorption in the following circumstances. Okay, a production department has budgeted production overheads of 180,000 and budgeted activity of 45,000 machine hours. Overheads are absorbed on machine hour basis. So in each of these situations, calculate under or absorption. The first thing, remember, we will do is find the rate, which is 180,000 divided by 45,000 gives us 4 per machine hour. Now, looking at the first one, we have actual overheads, 170,000, absorbed overheads, 45,000 hours. Remember, rate is found using budget. It is absorbed using actual activity. We have 170,000. In this specific situation, we have over absorbed. So we've charged 10,000 more than actual, which is a good thing now, remember, for F2 level. Otherwise, there is other things, complicated concept involved. I will not go into too much detail. So in this specific situation, activity is the same as budgeted, but overheads is not the same as budgeted. Let's look at this other situation. Remember, rate doesn't change. No matter whatever actually happens, the rate will always be the same. So rate is the same. Activity is 40,000. That means we will have 160,000 and 180,000 overheads is incurred. So we have 20,000 under absorbed in this situation. Now, overheads is the same as budgeted, but activity is not the same as budgeted. Let's look at the third one. Activity is 40,000. That means 160,000. Overheads is 170,000. So we have 10,000 under absorbed. Now, in this specific situation, we have overheads as well not the same as budgeted, activity as well not the same as budgeted. So remember, these were all the steps. First is allocation, then we divide costs in departments, we take the service departments, we add it on production department, then we include them in units, and then at the end of the year, remember from step 1 to step 4, they are done in advance, start of the year. But the fifth step is done at the end of the year, because when year ends and the actual figure is known, then we will know whether we have included too much overheads or too little overheads. So this is it for absorption costing. Let's look at kit questions. Remember, some of the points will be covered when we look at marginal costing as well, because something can be explained by comparison. Okay, let's look at kit questions. What is the total overhead cost of packing department to net is $? Remember, if we do all those steps that we did in Excel, it would take a lot of time. So only answer what is required. In this question, they specifically require what is the cost of packing department. I will only just do that. I will not find the cost of other departments. The following extract of information is available concerning the 4 cost centers of e.g. number of employees, number of indirect employees, overheads allocated and apportioned. The overhead cost of canteen is to be reapportioned to production cost centers on basis of number of employees in each production cost center. After reapportionment, what is the total overhead cost of packing department to nearest $? So packing department, they said divided based on employees. They didn't say direct or indirect, it means all of them. And then they specifically said in production departments. So we are going to ignore this employee. So total employees we have is 7 plus 6 plus 2 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1. 21. Taking total costs, 8,400 divided by 21 employees, and directly multiplying by packing department, which has 3 employees. So we will have 1,200. 1,200 reapportioned costs, and the costs that was already apportioned to it is 8,960. So after reapportionment, the cost will be 10,160. And this is it. What is the most appropriate production or heads rate for department 1? What is the most appropriate production or heads rate for department 2? Budgeted information relating to 2 departments in a company for next period is as follows. We have overheads, material, labor, hours, and machine hours. Individual direct labor employees within each department earn different rates of pay according to their skills, grade, and experience. What is most appropriate overhead absorption rate for department 1? Remember, we could divide overheads using material cost, labor hours, and machine hours. But the ones that is good is the one that you usually is going to be using is labor hours and machine hours. And out of these two, in department 1, machine hours would be good because machine hours is more. So I'm going to take 27,000 divided by 45,000 using 0.60 per machine hour. What is the most appropriate production overheads rate for Department 2? Remember, even though material cost is more, but we are talking about hours. So if hours is given, then hours is better than cost. In Department 2, more labor hours is done, so cost will be apportioned using labor hours. So we have 0.72 per labor hour, which would be C. So here D and C. Which two of the following statements about predetermined overhead absorption rate are true? Predetermined overhead absorption rate. We know what is overhead absorption rate, OAR, but what is predetermined? Remember, overhead absorption rates are predetermined anyways. They are known in advance. So don't be confused by the word predetermined. It simply means overhead absorption rate. Using predetermined overhead absorption rates avoids fluctuation in unit costs caused by abnormally high or low overhead expenditure or activity levels. Maybe using predetermined overhead absorption rate offers administrative convenience of being able to record full production costs sooner. Using predetermined absorption rate avoids problem of under or absorption of overheads because a constant overhead rate is applied. Using predetermined absorption rate avoids the problem associated with choosing appropriate absorption base. So both of these are problem. These are the problem with absorption costing. One is which rate to use, whether we should use machine hours, whether we should use labor hours. And the third one, because of absorption costing, we have under or absorption. So these problems are created, not avoided by absorption costing. If 3 and 4 is wrong, it means A and B is correct. A says predetermined overhead absorption avoids fluctuation in unit costs by abnormally high or low overhead expenditure level. Using absorption costing, we use the same cost throughout the year. So no matter whatever actual cost is going to be during the year, because of absorption costing, we could use same cost. And the second one, using predetermined absorption rate offers administrative convenience of being able to record full production costs sooner. Yes, we are able to record full cost even though full cost is not yet known, even though the year has not finished. Over absorption occurs when absorbed overheads exceed actual overheads. Yes, when absorbed is more than actual, it is over absorbed. What was the fixed production overheads absorbed amount during the year? And using the drop down list below, how much fixed overheads was under or absorbed? So it relates to two questions. A company has the following actual and budgeted data for year 4 with production 8,000, variable overheads, fixed overheads, and then sales. And then we have actual data. So what was the fixed production overheads absorbed amount? In order to find absorbed, we need to find absorption rate first, which would be budgeted overheads divided by budgeted units. Because hours is not given, we are going to use units. Which units? Production units or sales? Production units, because it is the cost of production. It doesn't have anything to do with sales. So we have 45 per unit. And actual units is 9,000, so that means absorbed would have been 405,000. So 405,000 is the answer here. And because actual is 432,000, we have under absorbed. 27,000 under absorbed, which is A. Which of the following would be most appropriate basis for apportioning machinery insurance costs to cost centers within a factory? Number of machines, floor area, value of machine, operating hours. Value of machine. The more the value of machine, the more insurance. Factory overheads can be absorbed by which of the following methods? Labor hours, machine hours as a percentage of prime cost per unit. Remember, first, second, and fourth is common, but we can use a percentage of prime cost as well, which means percentage of direct cost. Okay, this type of question, T account question, I recommend looking at process costing. They will be covered there. There isn't anything difficult about it, but all of them as one will be covered there. Which of the following is correct when considering the allocation, apportionment, and reapportionment of overheads and absorption costing? Only production-related costs should be considered. Allocation is the process where part of overheads is assigned to a cost center. Costs may only be reapportioned from production center to service. Any overheads assigned to single department should be ignored. Only production-related costs should be considered, maybe. Allocation is a situation where part of overheads is assigned to a cost center. This is apportionment, so this is wrong. Costs may be apportioned from production to service. No, from service to production. Any overheads assigned to single department should be ignored. It is saying allocated overheads should be ignored. No, they are not ignored. So if all these three are correct, it means the first one is all these three are wrong. The first one is correct, which means overheads, only production overheads are included. Remember, I explained in the beginning, we are talking about the production department's costs. Okay, what was the actual fixed overhead incurred for the period? A company has over-absorbed fixed production overheads for the period by 6,000. The fixed production overhead absorption rate was 8 and is based on normal level of activity of 5,000. Actual production was 4,500. Okay, so in a question like this, prepare the format. Remember, we write actual at the top, absorbed in the middle, and then under or in the bottom. They said overheads were over-absorbed. So actual, what are they asking? Actual fixed overheads incurred. Okay, so this is the question. If we had over-absorbed by 6,000, so here we have 6,000, overhead absorption rate was 8, and normal activity was 5, actual activity was 45. Remember, we absorb using actual activity. So multiplying by 8 becomes 36,000. So if 36,000 was absorbed and we have over-absorb of 6,000, that means actual should have been 30,000. So A would be correct. If it was under-absorbed, then the answer would be 42. What is the fixed overhead cost per unit for product Y? A company manufactures two products, X and Y, in a factory divided in two production cost centers, primary and finishing. The budgeted data are available. We have allocated and apportioned. We have minutes, product X, product Y, and then budgeted production is 6,000 units of X and 7,500 units of Y. So remember, time is given per unit. Total is not given, so we have to find total time. So we have product X spending 36 minutes multiplied by 6,000 units becomes 216,000. And then product Y, 48 minutes multiplied by 7,500, which becomes 360,000. Both of them added together we have 576,000 minutes. If I take that divided by 60, we have 9,600 hours. In which department? In primary. We're going to do the same thing with finishing. We have 25 multiplied by 6,000 plus 35 multiplied by 7,500, 412,500 divided by 60. We have 6875 hours. So 25 multiplied by 6,000, 35 multiplied by 7,500 divided by 60. Okay. Now the rate in primary is going to be 96,000 divided by 9,600 becomes 10 per hour. And in finishing, it is going to be 82,500 divided by 68,75 becomes 12 per hour. They are talking about product Y. So product Y, the cost per hour is 10. It takes 48 minutes. So multiply by 48 divided by 60 will be the cost incurred in department primary. And in finishing, it is 12 multiplied by 35 minutes divided by 67. So 8 plus 7, we have 15 cost. Next, how much was the total overhead under or absorbed? I will leave this, nothing new here. Okay, next, what is the total overheads for production cost center P? A factory consists of two production cost centers P and Q, two service cost center X and Y. The total allocated and apportioned overheads for each is as follows. We have P, QX. It has been estimated that each service cost center does work for other cost centers in the following proportion, which means reciprocal service we have 40%, 40%, 20%, 30%, 60%, and 10%. After the reapportionment of service cost centers, cost has been carried out using a method that fully recognizes the reciprocal service arrangement in the factory. What is the total overheads for production cost center? Remember, fully recognizes the reciprocal service is algebraic method. In algebraic method, we consider the reciprocal service. In direct method, we completely ignore it. In step-down method, we ignore it for one of the department. And in repeated distribution method, remember, there isn't an exact answer. So repeated distribution method, I would not expect to come in exam. So it is simply asking algebraic method. So we are finding X and Y. Let me go to the other page. X and Y. X is by itself 46,000 plus 10% of Y. And then Y equals 30,000 plus of X. So take any equation. Let's take this one. I'm going to multiply both sides by 10. We have 10x and then 460,000 and then 1y or y. If I rearrange that, we have minus 460,000 plus 10x. Take the equation of y, deduct it from it, we have 0y, and then minus 490,000 and plus 9.80x. Rearranging equals 490,000 and then dividing both sides by 9.80. For 90,000 divided by 9.80. Let's look at calculator, or let's do it here. We have 50,000. So X is 50,000. Put that in the equation of Y, which is 30,000 plus 0.20x. You have Y. Now, only answer the department they asked, P. So we are going to take 50,000 of X, directly multiply by the percentage of P, which is 40%. 40,000 multiplied by multiplying by the percentage of Y, which is P, which is 30%. So 20,000 plus 12,000 becomes 32,000. And the cost of Department P before this is 95,000 plus 32,000 becomes 127,000, which is D. I will leave this for you. Based on data above and assuming budgeted overhead absorption rate was 32 per hour, what was the budgeted number of hours to nearest hour budgeted to be worked? We have actual overheads, machine hours, budgeted overheads. So what are they asking? What were the budgeted number of hours? Okay. And overhead absorption rate is 32. Remember, if we can take budgeted overheads divided by budgeted activity, we have OIR. Then we can take budgeted overheads divided by OIR, it will give us budgeted activity. So budgeted overheads is 475,200 divided by OIR, which is 32, gives us 14,840 budgeted hours. Or if you want to prove it, take budgeted overheads divided by budgeted hours, should give you 32 OIR. Based on data above, what machine hours absorption rate? Okay, let's leave this simple. What was the budgeted overhead absorption rate for machine hours? Also simple. What was the fixed production overhead under or absorbed? Let's see. A company absorbed fixed production overheads in one of its departments on the basis of machine hours. There were 100,000 budgeted hours for forthcoming period. The fixed production overhead absorption rate was 2.5 per machine hour. During the period, the following actual results were recorded. Standard machine hours. Remember, standard means budgeted. Fixed production, but they use the word actual with it, so they are actual. Fixed production overheads is 300,000. So what was the fixed production overhead under or absorbed? Okay, if we have actual overheads of 300 and we have absorbed and then we have under or over. Okay, we have overhead absorption rate of 2.5. If actual machine hours is 110,000, multiplying by 2.5, that means we have 275,000 and we have 25,000 under absorbed, which is D. Consider the following situation regarding reapportionments of service cost centers overheads to production cost center where reciprocal service exists. Which two statements are correct? Direct method results in cost being reapportioned between service cost centers. The direct method is, when direct method is used, the order in which the service cost centers overheads are reapportioned is irrelevant. The step-down method results in cost being reapportioned between service cost centers. If the step-down method is used, the order in which the service cost centers overheads are reapportioned is irrelevant. The correct answer is here D. If we are using direct method, the way we divide it is not relevant. If you forgot it, go back to the step-down method, and direct method I explained it there. Next, after the apportionment of service cost center to the production department, what will the total overhead cost for mixing department? So they said use direct method. CTF has 2 service centers serving 2 production departments. Overhead costs apportioned to each department are as follows. And then we have percentages. So remember, in direct method, we simply take 181,600. We don't directly multiply. That we do in algebraic method. In direct method, what we do is we first have to divide by the percentage of production departments. Like in this case, 80, and then multiply. I'm going to do this separately so that you know. If 80 and 40. So first, if you don't divide it, then your answer will be wrong. In algebraic method, we want to leave some percentages. Here, we don't want to leave it. If you directly multiply, it means you're leaving some percentages. So store directly multiplying by which department are they asking? Mixing. So 50%. And 47, 200 divided by 85, directly multiplying by 45%. So 113, 500 plus 24988 plus 216, 400. So we have 354,888, which is D. After the apportionment of service cost centers, production cost center, what will the total overhead cost be for mixing department? So step down method, do this yourself. In this question, they didn't say with which department you should start. I would start with store. If the answer was correct, then I would select it. And then if the answer was not there, then I would look at canteen. So if in question it is not given, that is how to answer it. So this is something you will be able to do after marginal costing. And this one as well, I said do after process costing. And do this yourself as well. So this is it for absorption costing. But remember, it is not completely done because we have to look at marginal costing and then we have to compare both.